Welcome once again to see Cordle, Christian People's Alliance, and we're going to cover a diversity of subjects. Wow, we'll start with an easy one. We'll sort of get you shoehorned in there, Sid. And the first thing is the Labour Party are not friends with small and medium businesses. The big boys are looked after, but the little boys, which represent nearly 80% of our wealth in United Kingdom, forget it. They've been hit by the minimum wage and other things, something rotten. 18-year-olds, £10 an hour. 21-year-olds, £12 an hour. And they want to make it worse. They want everybody on £12 an hour. Do they not understand basic business principles? If you're in hospitality, this could end your business. Pub closes every day of the week, never reopens.
Yes, well, you see, the thing is, it's very easy for the Labour Party to increase the minimum wage because it costs them nothing. So they make this bold announcement, oh, look what we're doing to help the poor. You know, we've increased the minimum wage, but they don't pay. They don't pay any of it. The people that pay are business. And what they should be doing is focusing on helping businesses and supporting businesses to get more people in employment. Because you see, young people also lose out this way because some of them aren't going to get jobs. So, it's like, oh, we've increased their pay, but they've actually lost their jobs. And one of the things that's happened under this Labour government is that unemployment's gone up quite considerably from 4.6% when they came in to 5.2% now. And by the way, when the Labour Party left office in 2010, unemployment was 7.8%. So the Conservatives got it down considerably, even despite COVID. They got unemployment down to 4.6% when they left office from 7.8. So the Conservatives did very well on unemployment. The Labour Party are proving to be a disaster. But you see, the problem is, back to what we were saying last time, is that they just see the economy as like a cake. So we're going to divide it up more fairly and we're going to take money off the rich and give it to the poor. They don't realise that business is the engine that produces the wealth. And if you don't support business and help business, everyone ends up worse off. They don't grasp this, and they need to grasp it.
Something that's happening on our high streets is closure of banks. Lloyds have just announced 71 branches to close. Now, it's not just Lloyds, it's Halifax included in this and Bank of Scotland included in this. Now, we're supposed to be going to a post office. Well, they're closing as well. Or in certain centres, depending on the population, there's a shared bank. Bit of a novelty, that. Does it work?
Well, yes, I mean, in the sense that now you can, if you've got an HSBC bank account, you can go to a Lloyds Bank cash machine and get your money out. So, which is good, which is a big step forward. But the reality is that a lot more people now do their banking online. I mean, I do, let's be honest. And cash is becoming used less and less. I mean, I've virtually stopped using cash entirely, frankly. I mean, I never bother to get any money out of the cash machine now. I mean, I do all my transactions online. I mean, including giving in church, including whatever I'm doing. I just do it as a bank transfer. Um, it's because it's the easiest way to do it. If I want to give money to my children, I give it to them by just crediting their bank account. I don't send, some time in the past, I used to send cash in the post. I never send cash in the post now. I just do a bank transfer. And, because that's what's happened. I mean, I virtually never go into a bank now. The only time I go into a bank is when, after the Christian People's Alliance conference, some people have paid by cash, and I've got to go and pay money in because money was paid in cash. That's the only time I ever go into a bank. I never go into a bank for my personal use. But 20, 30 years ago, I was going into a bank on a regular basis and going to cash machines on a regular basis. So, things have changed. And it's inevitable that bank branches are going to close because the way people are banking are going to change, and it's got to be more efficient. And it's right, frankly.
Well, it's all right for you, Sid. You're not a granny, and they find it particularly difficult. And by the way, were you actually saying you pay your kids' pocket money and credit their bank account?
No, no. What I do is I give them money for Christmas
Oh, you're all heart, Sid, aren't you?
and for the
I mean,
birthday.
think of the personal touches.
No, well, it's. I have to confess that the reality is that in the past I bought them presents, but my ability to buy presents accurately is not very good. So I can spend a whole lot of money buying them a present, wrapping it up, sending it to them, and they think, "Oh, look what Dad's bought us." It just seems to be a waste of money for me and a waste of time for them, frankly. And they're much happier if I just send them money. They buy all the presents for the grandchildren. I've already sent them money to buy presents for the grandchildren for Christmas, and they're happy. They've got money to extra money to buy presents for the children. They wrap them up. These are from Granddad, and the children love it because they've got what they want. I'm happy because I haven't got to spend loads of time going around shopping for the grandchildren. My children are happy because they're buying what they want, so we're all happy.
Oh, so do you remember the days when we used to hang the stockings at at the foot of the bed, and we got full of nuts? Or did you not do that in the south? Tangerines, little trinkets, and that was part of the excitement. I mentioned that because I've come to solve your problems, and that is buy some silly socks and put tangerines in them. There's your answer.
No, well, obviously, when my children were young, that's what I used to do. But there's a big difference between doing things for your children and doing things for your grandchildren. What I mean? And obviously, my children are now uh, 37, 39, 41. It's like they're not of an age where they want a stocking at the bottom of their bed, but my grandchildren do. And it's I want to give my grandchildren lots of fun, but the best way I can give them lots of fun is by sending my children money to buy them presents. And by the way, I do take them out, and I took them out in the summer to an amusement park. It's Granddad pays for everything, and they love it. And in the winter, it's for my birthday, which is 2nd of January, we normally go out as well, everyone together. All my grandchildren, with Granddad pays for everything. And it's nice. I think it's something the grandchildren remember, when they go out with Granddad. It's so yeah, I do my bit.
There you go. Well, he is all heart after all, and I better not start that regime because I'd be bankrupt in 5 minutes with all our brood. Having said that, yes, um, let's dig.
So we're solving the world's population problem then between us.
Well, that's what they say. I remember in the good old days, Sid. I was very naughty. Because we had 7 children, all of which, and we still have 7 children, are boys, and they used to trail behind us walking down the street. And quite often, we used to get people coming into us, and we got fed up eventually, and saying, "Are you Roman Catholics?" And I got one day I'd had enough. No, we're oversexed Protestants, and that stopped it. Right,
How
we
many
moved.
grandchildren have you got then?
Oh, we've got great grandchildren.
Really? Wow.
I said, there's over children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren are about 20.
Oof,
Yeah, you
wow.
would be bankrupt. You're quite right. We move swiftly on. Um, Sid, the UK reputation
Hmm,
has shot to bits,
hmm,
and that's coming from serious people all over the world. What they mean? Well, they mean the following: Rachel Reeves and Sir Keir cannot cope. We've got institutions that fail us. The Treasury is a joke. The Bank of England is a joke. And the OBR is a double joke. And people are thinking, what has happened to this great country and its institutions? But today there are serious talks, and we've mentioned this on a number of occasions, about Sir Keir and his first lieutenant stepping down. They cannot go on like this. They're lining up three people. One is Ms. Mahmood, the other is Angela Rayner. Now that's going to be nice, having the Lady Rayner as PM of Britain. And the other course is the ambitious West Streeting. Who do you choose out of that lot?
Well, the answer would be none of them. But, you've raised a lot of issues there. First of all, if we can just say for the OBR and the Bank of England, I mean, they're supposedly independent. I thought the OBR actually did very well in the way that they made it clear to Rachel Reeves that she wasn't making good decisions. And the way that she telegraphed her budget and announced in advance ideas, including raising the basic rate of income tax just to test the water, was actually harmful to the whole British economy because she was creating so much uncertainty. Now, well done the OBR for actually making that clear. But unfortunately, the chair of the OBR then has to resign over the budget leak, which was unfortunate. But the OBR did well. I mean, what is crazy is the Office for the Value of Money, which a new quango, in addition to the OBR, which this Labour Party set up, which is an utter waste of time and has produced no value for money whatsoever. I mean, it's not the OBR, it's the additional quangos they created. And as far as the Bank of England is concerned, a lot depends on how good the chairman is. I mean, under Mark Carney, they were a complete disaster. Whereas under some previous, chairs, they've done well, but they do at least set interest rates independently. So previously the government set interest rates, so at least that's happening independently. And Keir Starmer's trying to claim credit for interest rate cuts, which is just nonsense because they're set independently and they were going down anyway under the Conservatives. And they're going down worldwide now as inflation goes down. But I mean, what this Labour Party's done is put inflation back up, which makes actually interest rates reduction less likely now. But if you then move on to talk about possible Labour leaders, you see, one of the things that influences me is not what they say, it's what they do. And of course, we've had major problems with Angela Rayner with what she's done. There's no question that she was dishonest about claiming that the flat in Brighton was her main home to avoid 40,000 stamp duty. And there's no question either that when she then announced that it wasn't her main home, it was a holiday home in order to reduce the amount of council tax she paid. So when she bought the property, it was her main home. But then a matter of a few weeks later, it wasn't her main home because that meant a reduction in council tax. Frankly, obviously, the whole thing was completely dishonest. But now Keir Starmer says, oh, no, there was no evidence of lack of integrity, so Angela Rayner can come back into government. I mean, it's just nonsense. And then if you look at Mahmood, I mean, she's made all these wonderful headline announcements. We're going to reduce the use of hotels because asylum seekers are going to go into army barracks, and we're not going to allow anyone that refuses to take asylum seekers back to have any visas at all, and all these other announcements that she's made, and actually none of it has been put into effect. So she's made wonderful, bold announcements and declared how pleased she is at the press response to her announcements, but nothing's actually happened. So it's all just paper talk. So no, I don't want Mahmood to be Prime Minister. I don't want Angela Rayner to be Prime Minister. She'd be a complete disaster and has proven dishonest. And frankly, I've got no confidence either in Wes Streeting because he's all over the place. He doesn't adopt consistent, courageous policies. So I've got no confidence in any of them, frankly.
We've got an outlier here and we've got to watch it. I can't see for 1 minute Kemi or Nigel being over the moon losing their best assets, in other words, Reeves and Starmer, because that gives them, well, the nation's fed up, vote for them. Somebody might come in the Labour Party and make half a fist of it. That's not going to be good for these hopefuls for the next election, is it?
Well, they're not going to, though. Let's be honest. I mean, another possibility which you've not mentioned is Ed Miliband. Ed Miliband, the hero of net zero, who is now greatly respected by the Labour Party. And when he was leader of the Labour Party, back in the 2010 general election, they didn't know what to do. They absolutely didn't know what to do. I mean, he came in and they had no answers whatsoever to the mess that the economy was left in 2010. So not surprising he didn't get elected leader in 2015, elected prime minister, I mean, in 2015, because he didn't have the answers. So he's got no answer now, frankly, to the economic problems that the country faces. And I remember him saying that even if we call a referendum over the European Union, all investment in Britain will stop. It'll be an economic disaster just calling a referendum, let alone actually leaving. And of course, if we actually leave, we're going to lose 3 million jobs. This was all Ed Miliband. I mean, what he said was completely false then, and he's got no ideas now. I mean, there's nobody there in the Labour benches that has an ounce of confidence that can do a good job of running the country. And by the way, while I'm just talking about this, one other thing that exercises me over this Labour government is the way that they announced, we're going to have an inquiry into the grooming gangs. And we're going to get to the root of this problem. We're going to solve the problem. They then, when they announced the inquiry, put such conditions on it that even the victims say, we're not going to take part because we're not allowed to talk properly. The people they appoint as chairs say, we're not going to chair these inquiries with these conditions that you're imposing. We've got to be able to talk to the victims and hear their stories. We're not just going to have submissions in advance that can't be, and no oral evidence. We're not going to have that, so we're not going to run the inquiries. Keir Starmer says, oh, doesn't matter, we'll find somebody else to run them. Have they found somebody else? No. Are they doing anything about grooming gangs? No. It's all talk, no action.
Well, it's something we must discuss. Charlie Peters on GB News this morning really hammered a nail into the shadow. This is the Tory shadow. And he said, hang on, we realise what Labour's up to. What have you been up to for donkey's years? Have you ever got together in a cross-party session and say, come on, this needs sorting out? And of course, we got a strange political answer. Eventually, he said, in other words, no. Therefore, Sid, are the Tories just as guilty as Labour?
Okay, so if we're talking about grooming gangs, the Conservatives did have some local inquiries which they put in place in Rotherham and Oldham, which did take evidence and did actually bring things to light. But we needed a national grooming inquiry. And yes, the Conservatives didn't have a national grooming inquiry, which we should have. But the fault initially was, frankly, the fault of the police, because the police were scared to get to grips with what was under their noses because they didn't want to do anything against the Islamic community, which unfortunately is where most of the grooming gangs are coming from. So they didn't want to involve themselves with that community, so they'd rather just turn a blind eye. That's the reality. That's what was behind it. The Conservative Party did start to get to grips with it, but they didn't go far enough.
Well, it's unconscionable, this, Sid. It really is. You think of the cover-up between the mayoral things on the south coast of England. That's clearly dodgy. This has been dodgy for years, and they want to get some votes from the Islamic community, especially the Labour Party, and to some extent, indeed, the Tory party. This isn't politics, it's a shambles.
Well, yes, absolutely. But the result of this, I was reading this morning about how this head of ISIS is a British citizen with his wife and family in Slough in the UK. And prior to him becoming the head of ISIS in Somalia, where he is now, as a British citizen, he was an imam in a mosque preaching hate sermons. Now, we gave him British citizenship while he was an imam in a mosque preaching hate sermons. You know, what on earth is the Home Office up to? I mean, there was masses of evidence that this man was incredibly dangerous and a great danger to our society when we gave him British citizenship. I mean, it just goes to show that we've got nowhere near to getting to grips with the problems that the Islamic community faces, where they are committed to a radical view of Islam, which all the extreme groups like Itbaq Tahrir and Tabligh Jamaat and all these groups are, and including obviously ISIS, which these people have got links to. Anyone, you see, which is roughly about 30% of all Muslims. I mean, I'm not attacking all Muslims, the 70% of Muslims that are generally law abiding and peaceful, but 30% is still a very large number. And it's those people we need to get to grips to and say there's no way you can become a British citizen, and if they've come here illegally, they should be deported. End of story.
Well, we think we're in the bottom of the cesspit. No, we're not. We've got to cover Calamity Lammy. I'm going to read you something, and I can't even believe that I'm reading this. The number of things that have gone wrong. I'm thinking of prisons in particular. There are 250 people out there that have been released in the last 12 months that should never have been released. 250. Wow. A whistleblower has come out with some truths. I think he was in for fraud, but what he saw in there has got to be made known. And he said nobody obeys the laws in prisons, especially the prison officers. They take the easy way out. They see drugs being shared on a daily basis, and rather than being jumped on, they just let it happen because it's the easy life. Some officers can't speak a word of English. What they've been employed for in prison then? That's another indictment. The other thing, or the other things, Lammy says we can solve most of the problems by computerization. Really? Oh, well, we can't lose the papers. If it's in a computer, you can do more damage with a computer than you can with the occasional lost piece of paper. I do assure you, Mr. Lammy. And there's 40% reduction. Well, no, 60%. Your reduction in sentences. In other words, 40%. Oh, well, that's your time served. Off you go. Just to release more prison cells. Well, that has been a disaster. Figures are coming out every day about that. 20% of prisoners who are due for release are kept in prison simply because of the inefficiency of the system. Oh, I forgot you were due out this week. And they're serving months extra. I mean, how could it be worse than that?
Okay, well, both the Labour and the Conservative parties have got the wrong approach to solving the problems, the criminal problems that we face. See, the Conservative answer is build more prisons, which they didn't because they didn't have much money. But that's their policy. Their policy is to say build more prisons. If we build more prisons, we'll have more places, we'll deal with the overcrowding, we'll solve the problems. The Labour Party solution is let people out early, as you say. So instead of making people serve 50% of their sentences, we make them serve 40%. Now, the problem with that is that when you let people out early, you're not giving them any help and support when they come out. So there's nothing in place. So a lot of these people they're letting out early, they just let out onto the streets. Even if they've got a home, probation will say you can't go back home because you're dangerous to your children, so we're not letting you go back home. So they're just put out into a hostel or they're put out onto the streets, and there's drugs in all these hostels, and so the people are utterly miserable. So there's no support. The end result, therefore, is that these people that let out early offend again. Now, reoffending is above 40% on a national basis. So there's 40% of the people let out as it is now that reoffend. So then they're back in court. We've got a massive backlog in the courts. They're then back in prison again. So what have we achieved? Nothing. And then, of course, you've also got all the victims of the crime. So all the victims are the people that have let out early, reoffend, back in court, back in prison. But, there's a victim who's been a victim of the crime. So the right approach, which we've been saying over and over again now, is to work with people when they come out of prison to guarantee that people that come out are given proper housing, proper help and support so they don't reoffend. Now, this we've got charities like Saltbox in Stoke and Message Trust in Manchester that have done this with charitable money and got reoffending down below 10%. So we know it works, we know it can be done. And if you reduce reoffending from 40% to 10%, then obviously everyone gains. You've got fewer victims, you've got fewer people in court, fewer people in prison, and people in prison have got something to look forward to when they come out. So everyone's happier. And that needs to be the focus. We've been saying this over and over again now for a long time, but no one's listening. But that is the approach that needs to be taken. And that, frankly, will mean that, even if you let people out early, if they're given proper help and support when they come out and they don't reoffend, it doesn't matter.
Interesting, Sid. Let's turn to something else interesting. Tony Blair. Keep putting him back in his box and he keeps escaping. The Tony Blair think tank has decided it wants to renew Britain. There's the latest phrase. And he's got the ideas. Now, whether he's stoking the fire to get rid of Sir Keir because they have recently fallen out, allegedly, on a number of occasions, Blair wants the Labour Party to definitely turn to the right, as New Labour did under him, of course. He wants no more net zero, and basically he wants the economy to grow. Hear to that last one especially.
Well, yes, but because, Tony Blair, the architect of New Labour, did indeed turn Labour away from the left wing, but he also turned Labour a lot more to immorality. I mean, he was on moral issues. Tony Blair was terrible, and I've got no confidence, frankly, in the things that he introduced. But yeah, he was a lot better on economic issues. And yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we need somebody that understands business, that can do produce the right economic decisions. And by the way, Tony Blair wanted to take us into the euro. It was only that Gordon Brown, God bless Gordon Brown, that actually stopped us going into the euro. And Gordon Brown had a better understanding of the economy probably than Tony Blair, and the two were working together. So what we need is a chancellor like Gordon Brown, somebody that can really make decisions and understands how business works and can sort out the economic problems that the country faces. That's what we need.
Let's talk about some other nasties. There's always nasties in any budget. You've got to wait for 48 hours to look at the small print. And again, it's happened. And this time, it's going to affect millions of people. It's the tax trap because of raising levels of tax across the board. everybody will be taxed on their whole pension. If you've been what the governments throughout the decades have said, look after yourself as much as you can, save for a private pension if you want a super duper job on top of the state's pension. She's got the lot. You'll be taxed now from 2028 on everything. Now that's a lot of money she's going to get. It's not worth saving. Spend it, enjoy yourself, eat, drink, and be merry.
Well, yeah, I don't totally agree with that. I mean, you see, what's happened is the Conservatives did substantially increase the tax thresholds until in 2019 they froze them. But they were substantially increased before they froze them. And having substantial tax thresholds is certainly a very good thing because they're keeping people out of tax. See, what you're talking about now is that with freezing the tax threshold at 12,500, the basic state pension from 2028 will be above 12,500. So that basically means that even people that are only on the basic state pension, they've got no other income, will still have to pay a small amount of tax, which is certainly regrettable and certainly a bad policy. But it's good that the basic state pension is going up with this, what they call the triple lock. So it's as the highest thing at the moment in the triple lock is the rise in average earnings. So rise in average earnings is going up something like 4.6%. I believe that's the figure. So pensions are going up 4.6%, which is above the rate of inflation. So that's a good thing. So even though pensioners will be paying a small amount of tax, the fact that they're, because of the triple lock, they're still going to be better off. But in terms of the economy generally, continuing to freeze the tax thresholds and bringing more people into tax, and it's also going to affect people at the higher end as well, because there'll be a lot more people paying the 40% tax than were paying it before with that level frozen. That's going to have a big effect on people that are on middle income. Yeah, it's a bad policy. It's a very bad policy. And we've talked before about what they should be doing, but certainly freezing the basic rate threshold is in and bringing people at the lowest level into tax is absolutely the wrong approach. Our policy would be to increase the basic tax threshold to 20,000, the 0% band.
Just as the NHS is the holy grail, so it appears to be the triple lock. Nobody's got the political confidence to put an end to it. Should it be put an end to?
No, absolutely not. The triple lock is a good thing. I've told you how we should save money over and over again. I mean, it's quangos with spending's gone up now by over 200 billion in real terms. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's absolutely crazy. And, okay, you can say, oh, the triple lock is costing us too much. It's going to cost us another 8 billion. Yeah, well, 8 billion's a lot of money, but it's not as much as 200 billion. So it's quite easy. All we got to do is to freeze all regulations and announce that not all our regulations are going to focus on one thing, and that is professional standards. So we're going to have a professional standards authority that focuses on professional standards across the board. That's the only quango that we need, a professional standards authority. And all the rest of it, all the net zero task force and all the rest of this nonsense at the moment, the Office for the Value of Money and the football regulator and all this stuff, we don't need it, frankly. And we'll just get rid of them all. I mean, there's 560 quangos, 28 health quangos, all of which are criticising each other half the time, and not one of them treats a single patient. 12 education quangos, not one of whom teaches a single child. I mean, it's all promoting left-wing nonsense in society. And the sooner we get rid of them, the better. And the sooner we save this 200 billion at least, I mean, at least that we're talking about, the sooner we can realise all the rest of it, including money spent on the health service and money spent on the triple lock, can easily be afforded.
Sid, we have a go at the electric vehicle from time to time, and we're talking about nasties out of the budget. If you've got a hybrid, which is distinctly, in my humble opinion, superior, you've not got range panic, and it seems to be taking off no longer overnight car prices. If you've got a hybrid have sunk, and the reason being is that you're going to be paying tax on your petrol. You're going to be paying 1.5p a mile on the whole lot. So it's a double whammy. They can't even get that right. And then Mr. Octopus, that's the biggest supplier of electricity, comes along and says, right, we're putting up charging rates. You'll get 6 hours when it's cheaper, obviously in the middle of the night, I would think. The rest of the time you'll pay. Might as well pay for petrol prices. That's a triple whammy.
Yeah, I mean it makes a complete nonsense of all this, the government's net zero task force and all the others, you know, all the other environment quangos which they've set up, that yet at the same time they're doing the opposite with the tax policy, literally discouraging people from having electric vehicles effectively and discouraging people from having hybrid vehicles. I mean, it's just frankly this government doesn't know what it's doing. They're just making a complete mess of running the economy. And what you've said there is an example. I mean, they've got no clear, sensible policy.
And we can't look forward to them either getting sensible policies in line for our defence, our nuclear submarines. We can't afford to keep them. The King has just launched a new nuclear submarine, slightly smaller than the rest, and it's taken 30 years to build. There's just no money being put into our armed forces. This is just an example. Frankly, without our nuclear subs, we're literally dead in the water. That's our big deterrent. And it's at all levels that the armed forces are suffering. Even at a European level, Sid, we're out of the European movement, which has not been affected by Brexit because Europe needs our military. But Europe is asking for too much money, £6.5 billion contribution. And we ain't got it. So that's reached a stalemate. Mind you, it's taken donkey's years for Europe to get anything organised, which is, of course, standard practice. But I tell you what, when people say if Putin really has a flip, we're in trouble.
Well, yes, you see, Germany has just bought the Arrow defense system from Israel because the future of defense is missile shield. And we've been saying this for the last 10 years, and it's becoming increasingly clear. Russia is threatening to send missiles to British cities. See, and what we need is not, well, if you send a missile to London, we'll send a missile to Moscow. I mean, that is not going to stop, I'm afraid, the extremists that are now in control of nuclear weapons. They believe that they've got missile defense and they can stop any missile that we might fire at Moscow, but they can get their missile through because we haven't got the missile defense we need. I mean, it may be that laser defense systems will help, but we should have a proper missile defense system so that any missiles fired from Russia at any British cities can be intercepted in the air and stopped. That's, we haven't got it. We haven't got it. That's what we need. Israel has shown, Ukraine has shown that the right approach is missile defense. It's not, it's not threatening your aggressor. I mean, that's part of it, but that's not the only thing to do. Even in this last night, Ukraine shot down, 90% of the drones that Russia sent over. It's that's the future of warfare, and it's clear. It seems clear.
Well, you've strangely mentioned drones. I was going to say, as an addendum to the nuclear submarines, maybe one reason for this slowness, this rollout, is the fact that drones have taken over.
Well, yes.
And new technology has surprised us.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And we need to adapt accordingly. I mean, Russia's coming up with more sophisticated drones, and I guess Ukraine is as well. You know, with more sophisticated drones, send them over. You know, you send the drones over, they're relatively cheap. There's nobody in the drone to get killed. So all you get to do is an effective drone operator that can then send the drone over and you can blow up goodness knows what. You know, Russia's oil depots, Russia's nuclear weapons, you know, whatever you want to blow up with drones. They've blown up the ship successfully with drones. You know, it's that's modern warfare and we've got to adapt. That's the reality of it, not just focus on having nuclear weapons, you know, and new nuclear submarines. I'm sorry that's no longer modern warfare.
We'll come down to earth, Sid, and mention Asda. Asda have not been a happy bunny for quite a while, actually. They've been losing pace in the supermarket battles. So they've called in the fire brigade. And as in most companies, number one, how we can cut costs. We've got 150,000 employees, and one glaring example is sickies. People are not turning up to work as they used to do. And this is a disease that seems to affect many countries, especially the UK. But of course, the unions don't like this. It's the strong man against the weak individual. Is it? Should we tackle sickies? They're doing it. They want to get back into full profit again.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously Asda are also being hit by the minimum wage because people just filling shelves, you know, by and large are on the minimum wage. So that will also affect supermarkets, though it will affect them all. But obviously Asda and Tesco and Sainsbury's and Morrison's have been affected by Aldi and Lidl that have come in with, you know, with cheap discount food. And what they're doing is not offering everything that you want to buy, but they offer the most of the things that you want to buy at a cheaper price. And frankly, I do the majority of my supermarket shopping now in Aldi, and it's an increasing result. I mean, I don't go into Asda, but also Asda's got a problem that it's been taken on some woke policies, which is again a reason why not to shop in Asda. And generally speaking, companies that have taken on woke policies have lost enormous amounts of business. I mean, the most dramatic example has been Jaguar, which where their business just absolutely collapsed when they produced their advert, which didn't even have a car in it. It was just promoting LGBT. And the person that actually launched that is now being sacked by Jaguar because it's had such a terrible effect on the business. But everyone should take notice. If you go down that route, then you'll lose business.
You will indeed. And as we're talking about culture, we've got to mention the BBC again. Sid, they just don't get it. The people that remain there, mainly, news guys, don't see that they've done anything wrong, even when it's be as blatant as the Trump fiddling around with the edit. They still don't get it. And they won't change, Sid. It's not sufficient to get rid of the two at the top. It's got to be far deeper. It's got to be a complete clean out. It's got to be sold to a private person, perhaps.
Yeah, I think that probably is the right solution. I mean, because you know, we've got to get rid of the BBC license fee. There's no question because it's past its use by date. I mean, there may have been a time in the past when most people watch the BBC. That's where they got their news from. But those days are past, and young people these days are increasingly not using any um, broadcast news media. They're getting their news from social media. So they don't even bother. I mean, increasingly young people aren't bothering with a BBC license fee because, as far as they're concerned, social media will tell them what they need to know. And yeah, I'm afraid that the BBC in its existing pattern has just got. The sooner it's stopped, the better, frankly.
The thing that I personally object to is this Arab service. When that was first invented, many years ago, there was no Arab representation throughout the world practically. So you can see why the World Service got a channel for the Arabs. But it's loaded with information now. There's no need for that channel. Why should we, as taxpayers, be funding that awful Arab service that is hating Israel?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, there was a time when the BBC World Service was respected worldwide as a very good source of information, and where governments, in many countries, will give propaganda. People would manage to get hold of the BBC World Service and find out exactly what was going on. But as the BBC World Service has become more and more woke and less reliable, and producing rather than the facts, producing an agenda, so it loses any value, frankly. And the BBC World Service is no longer respected in the way it was. And since it's no longer respected, why should we pay for it anymore? It's sad that it's come to this, but that's the reality, I'm afraid.
Well, lastly, turn to sports, Sid. And hooray for Lando Norris. He's got very rich parents. £200 million. Oh, I'm going to retire and put my son in a Formula One car. Well, it's worked. Lots of people saying, oh, he's too nice to drive a Formula One car. Too much of a good guy. He should be like Max Verstappen. Well, there you go. He came through just.
Yes, and yesterday it was Yuki Tsunoda who literally drove him off the road when he was trying to overtake in order to try and help his colleague Max Verstappen. But fortunately, the stewards actually penalised Tsunoda for the way he was driving and didn't penalise Norris for going off the road. But that decision could have gone the other way.
Yes.
And when he drove him off the road, it could have caused an accident and Norris could have been out. So to that extent, yes, it was quite close. I do respect the way that Norris drives. I mean, he looks after his tyres in the early part of the race and expects them to come good later on. And if he can get out in front, he's shown that he can be a very fast driver. Piastri, though, has also shown himself to be an excellent driver this year, um, certainly in the first part of the year when he actually had a significant lead in the World Championship. But it's interesting how he faded. I don't really quite know why he faded so much, but suddenly, as it got to the end of the season, Norris improved and Piastri seemed to get worse. What Verstappen did was frankly heroic, but it seems as though he didn't have the machinery in the first part of the year in order to compete. But then somehow Red Bull came good and produced a car that was apparently better than McLaren. And suddenly Verstappen started winning all the races. If there'd been one more race in the season, Verstappen would have been world champion. That's the reality of it. But well done, Norris. You've got to look it over. It's a long season. You've got to look at it over the whole season. Over the whole season, he's got more points than anyone else. Next year, there's going to be a whole lot of new regulations come in. So there's no guarantee next year that McLaren will be at the front again. In fact, it could well be that Aston Martin are up there because they've been focusing on 2026 for a long time with Adrian Newey, who's the world's best car designer. So who knows? we could well find that suddenly Aston Martin are right at the front next year. But whoever it is, it's I do respect the way Lando Norris drives, and I think he's a tremendous world champion, and he's very popular in the paddock. So well done, Lando.
Which moves us on to Crystal Palace, number 4, top four in the Premier League. Who'd have bet against that at the beginning of the season? Why are they not having the superstars, perhaps one, doing so well?
Well, they've had a tremendous togetherness. They've got a very good manager, by the way, and they've had a tremendous togetherness in the team. When they won the FA Cup last year over Man City in the final, that was a fantastic achievement. And the fact that they weren't allowed to compete in the Europa Cup, frankly, was a disgraceful decision. But they're in the conference, so they're in Europe. So yeah, if they'd have been in the Europa Cup, they'd have probably had a bit more money coming in, so they could have afforded to have better stars. But they've lost Eze. Eze's gone to Arsenal. Arsenal have been, bar their last match, which they lost, but otherwise they've been doing absolutely brilliantly. They've got a number of Christians in their team, and they said they've actually got 10 Christians that are meeting together and praying in the hotels before the matches. She's a wonderful example. So well done, Arsenal, and well done, Crystal Palace. That's still got a number of Christians in their team. It's great that these teams that are honouring God are being successful.
Sure is, and I tell you who's enjoying life at the moment, Jeffrey Boycott. He's been absolutely right and proved right, as a has been, giving advice to the New England baseball setup. I mean, there again, it beggars belief, Sid. Stop playing 20, 100 over whatever format of the short game you want to play. It's not working. Are they stubborn or stupid or both?
Well, to be fair, Rodney, Australia scored at a faster rate than England in the last test, if you look at their innings. So it wasn't all because England were hitting out. I mean, the fact is that we never seem to perform well in Australia. I don't really know why, but I don't think it's about the way they're performing at all. I think it's just the fact that they haven't been able to score enough runs for some reason. And
Well, Sir Geoffrey always did well. He had 4 tours to Australia, drew 2 of them, won 2 of them. He's absolutely right to speak out.
Well, yeah, obviously, Jeffrey Boycott was the most boring batsman that you'd ever care to watch, and these days the focus is much more on entertainment. So, yeah, I mean, it's good luck to him. I mean, he was successful in just prodding the ball back and occupying the crease and scoring very slowly. He was successful, but in modern cricket, Jeffrey Boycott wouldn't get very far, frankly.
Yes, I think that sums it up nicely. Which leaves us finally with Mo Salah, another overpaid footballer with attitude. He's been dropped from 3/4 matches, doesn't like it, thrown his toys out of the pram, and virtually said, I'm going to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, good luck to him. Let him go. I mean, end of the day, you know, Mohamed Salah was in the team in Liverpool at the beginning of the season. They started losing all the matches and they had to have a shake up. And Salah's got a bad attitude. He wants to go. Apparently, all the other Liverpool players want him to go anyway. So, it's the sooner he goes, the better, frankly.
So there you are. We finish on a note of hope. Sid, it's been a joy. Thank you. We'll see you next week.